We're back here again. What if the greatest barrier to solving problem isn't a lack of resources, but a lack of collaboration? Hmm. Every day, organizations are working hard, and we thank you for your service. Schools are educating, nonprofits are serving, businesses are hiring, government agencies are providing support. Healthcare organizations are improving outcomes. Faith based institutions are helping families. But despite all this effort, many of the same challenges remain. Why is that, Dr. Dorsey? Great question. Because too often, everyone is working hard, but not necessarily working together. Good morning, and welcome to Disrupting Poverty Through Leadership That Delivers Results AM Talk Show. I am your host, Dr. Tekemia Dorsey, and today we're discussing one of the most important leadership competencies of the 21st century: building intentional cross sector partnerships. Because the future belongs to leaders who understand that sustainable change requires collaboration across systems, organizations, and industries. Today's episode is titled Breaking Down Silos, Creating Cross Sector Leadership Partnerships and Opportunities Intentionally. Agenda 2030 in Action. Agenda 2030 recognizes something many leaders are just beginning to understand. Complex problems require collaborative solutions. The Sustainable Development Goals cannot be achieved by one organization. They require government leadership, educational leadership, business leadership, nonprofit leadership, community leadership, health care leadership, faith based leadership. Today's discussion aligns directly with SDG 1, no poverty, and these SDGs come directly from Agenda 2030. SDG 4, quality education, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, SDG 10, reduce inequalities, SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, SDG 17, partnerships for the goals. And perhaps no SDG is more relevant in today's discussion than SDG 17, partnerships for the goals. Because partnerships are not optional, they are essential. Let's begin by discussing while so many organizations still operate in silos. Many organizations genuinely do want to create impact, but they don't want to share the stage. Yet they often operate independently. Why? Because of competition for funding, limited communication, organizational priorities, lack of relationship building, and historical section separation beyond sectors. You know, I was having a conversation this weekend, and a workforce organization was helping individuals gain employment. Story from another shared with me. A housing organization was helping families secure stable housing, and a transportation agency addressed mobility challenges. All three of these scenarios are live in today's time. There are workforce organizations that help individuals gain employment. There are housing organizations that help families secure stable housing. And there are transportation agencies that address mobility challenges. And each organization do achieve results. But individuals served often needed all three supports simultaneously. Without coordination, progress remains fragmented, broken into big, small pieces and chunks. Because the truth, people experience life holistically, not individually. And systems often respond separately. And this is why intentional collaboration matters. Many partnerships happen by chance. An introduction is made, a meeting occurs, an opportunity emerges, but transformational partnerships are intentional. Intentional partnerships ask, what shared outcomes are we pursuing? How can our strength complement one another? What barriers can we solve together? And how can we sustain the relationship long term? $1 million questions. You know, a school system partnered with local employers, workforce agencies, and higher education institutions. You know, one school system locally that I think do an exceptional job with this is Prince George's County Public Schools and Montgomery County Public Schools as well. They have intentional partnerships with community organizations. And they might not do every level exceptional, but they do each parts of these levels adequately. And together, when school systems partner with employers, workforce agencies, and higher education institutions, they create career pathways. You would think I didn't get enough rest last night, but I think I did. Oh, I did go to sleep late. Sorry about that. When these intentional partnerships are aligned, together they create career pathways, internship opportunities, mentorship programs, and workforce readiness initiatives. If each one of these organizations are doing phenomenal work by themselves, can you imagine the impact if one, two, three, or all four work together on shared outcomes? Right. Because the results is that students gain access to opportunities that no single institution could have been provided alone. Intentional partnerships create intentional outcomes. And leadership must shift from ownership to stewardship, right? Cross sector leadership requires humility. It requires leaders willing to say, we cannot do it alone. I need you, you need me, we need us. And this can be difficult because oftentimes leaders have egos, and those egos are barriers to success. Many leaders are accustomed to protecting organizational identity, managing internal priorities, and measuring individual success. But collaborative leadership asks, how do we create collective success? More people, more resources can lead to more problems, but it leads to greater impact nonetheless. Collaborative leadership asks, how do we align resources? Because no one organization has everything. And how do we share leadership? A coalition addressing poverty brought together nonprofit leaders, education, healthcare providers, and business executives. Instead of competing for recognition, they focused on shared impact. I wonder if I wrote my own story in here. Okay, maybe not. The community benefited tremendously. Great leaders are not threatened by collaboration. They strengthen it. And that is a real test to leadership. And collaboration creates opportunities that otherwise would not exist. When sectors collaborate, opportunities expand. Examples include youth leadership programs, need more collaboration today more than ever, workforce pipelines, scholarship opportunities, entrepreneurship initiatives, community health programs, and leadership development academies. A community college partnered with local employers and nonprofit organizations. Together, they developed training programs, career pathways, and employment opportunities. Participants moved from education into employment into greater success. Everyone benefit all around, right? Partnerships create pathways, everyone. And pathways create what? Mobility. 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 Mo, 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 mobility. But partnerships must be built intentionally and not symbolically. And I know this to be true. From poverty to prosperity leadership that is coming up soon, a year ago, I started intentional outreach. Like, I knew that I needed cross-sector people from this agency and this agency and this agency and this agency. And although it has changed several times on purpose, actually improving from yeses and nos and maybes and stepping up and backing off and ghosting, and it happens. Each time I had to revise it based off of the initial intent, the intent got better. That meant the outcome improved. That meant that the cross leadership intentionality and the economic mobility pipeline built across from infancy to maturity improved because I started incorporating from a macro standpoint all pieces of the puzzle that needed to be in there, right? At some points, I was thinking micro, still intentional, still cross-sector leadership, but God was helping me to see that I wasn't thinking deep enough. I thought I was deep, but I was still on the surface. And going after organizations or representatives in particular places, knowing what my belief is and knowing what my vision is, and created intentional partnerships on purpose and ensuring that there was a representative or representatives in these as a part of this, not just for clout chasing, but getting 120 unique leaders in a room that would not be in the room ideally is building partnerships intentionally, because even in the same organization, or agency, people in different roles are going to learn something different about a different department that they didn't know. And trust me, one agency that I intentionally went after was in a meeting for them for 6 weeks. Two people from two different departments, and yet questions to answers were intentionally different because they didn't know. They know their area, their position, their role. That's it. Because that's all they're hired, or that's all. It's intentional for them to know. But when the discussion amplified to the summit, light bulbs started going off, because now these people will be in rooms, not just with people within their agency that they're learning new stuff about, but then how it rolls over into the private business, educational, workforce setting, that they would not have an opportunity to get in a room with these people otherwise. Intentional partnerships, not symbolic. I would, even though I have a great lineup of intentional heavy hitters, too many of them would distort the intent and the purpose and the outcome of my leadership summit. And I didn't want that, because leaders that are high up can move mountains or can make decisions, but it's those on the ground that build the wall to China, right? So partnerships must be built intentionally, not symbolically. Now, keep in mind, not every partnership creates impact for several reasons, right? Some partnerships only exist on paper, theory, but real collaboration requires clear goals, defined responsibilities, measurable outcomes, consistent communication, and shared accountability. 5 factors. Always more, nothing less. A coalition launched with significant excitement. Everything new is always excited. Whoop, 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 yep, yep, whoop, 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 right? However, no goals were established. No outcomes were measured. No accountability systems existed. Systems. Eventually, participation declined. There was a hefty lesson behind this. And that lesson is collaboration without accountability simply becomes conversation. Woo, did you feel that? Woo, that chill. Collaboration without accountability becomes conversation. Collaboration with accountability becomes what? Transformation. You guys are so on it this morning. And this brings us directly to Agenda 2030. Agenda 2030 is fundamentally a partnership framework, all day, every day. The SDGs, which stands for Sustainable Development Goals, recognize that poverty intersects with education, all day, every day, right? Education intersects with workforce development. Connect the dots. Ding, 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 ding. Workforce development intersects with healthcare. Money, money, money. Money. Healthcare intersects with housing. And housing intersects with economic mobility. Everything is connected, guys. And because everything is connected, leadership must become connected too. The future belongs to leaders who know how to build bridges across sectors, not in words, but in actionable outcomes, right? With measurable goals. Let's bring this into action. Here is your leadership challenge. Identify one organization outside your sector that shares a similar mission. Schedule one partnership conversation within the next 30 days. If you're on my list, we'll be talking real soon. And explore One opportunity for collaboration that creates shared value. And focus on outcomes that benefit the community, not just your organization. Well, technically, the benefits, okay, whatever. Because here's the truth: no single organization can solve poverty, not one. But even before we can get to there, individuals in management, leadership, and frontline roles must acknowledge that poverty exists. Directly, indirectly, it didn't just happen, and it's not going away tomorrow. But if you're waking up every day and breathing this beautiful air, then you have a responsibility to acknowledge it and be the solution and not the problem. Because no single leader can transform a system. And guess what? You don't have to have a title to be identified as a leader. If God woke you up this morning, you're a leader. Duh. Okay. No single sector can create sustainable change. Do you want me to go back over poverty is education, education is workforce, workforce is right? Okay. But together, let me go back over that. Poverty intersects with education. Education intersects with workforce development. Workforce development intersects with healthcare. Healthcare intersects with housing. Housing intersects with economic mobility. But together, we can build stronger systems. We can create greater opportunities. We can develop future leaders. And we can accelerate the goals of Agenda 2030. If this episode challenged your leadership thinking, and if it wasn't, then you must have been halfway asleep, follow Disrupting Poverty Through Leadership That Delivers Results AM Talk Show on YouTube for now. Share one successful partnership that has created meaningful impact in your community. Tag a leader from another sector whose collaboration has helped advance positive change. Because Agenda 30 requires more than just individual excellence. It requires intentional partnerships, collaborative leadership, and a shared commitment to build stronger, and the strongest communities. Well, thank you for tuning in for another dynamic episode. Hit that subscribe button, rewind, download, extract the audio, or rewatch, share in your network this episode. Be sure to tag a leader below, or let us know how your leadership challenges are going, or what you have going on in your world that is working towards disrupting poverty through leadership that delivers results. And tune into my episode tomorrow and every day thereafter. But don't forget to go back and download, rewind, share, listen, take notes, and put into action the leadership challenges and episodes from previous weeks. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. And until then, peace out.